Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in today's video, I wanted to discuss something with you guys that I've been brainstorming about these past few weeks. Get interaction going in the comment section down below. Now, we've been discussing Sprint's LTE network for quite some time now, and I've received a lot of feedback from you guys, and a lot of you guys are saying, the network is still not up to par. Their network expansion is not happening. The speeds are still slower. Well, I've been doing some brainstorming and doing a lot of research these past few weeks. And as you can see, and I've reported some newer technology that will be added into the phones next year as well. Sprint has a hidden secret turbo boost in the phones, which is the third carrier aggregation that they will launch on Band 41. It's already live in some markets, and as these next few weeks roll out, it will go live in other markets as well. So, I was listening earlier, I was watching a video of an analyst that was pretty much doing like a summary and overview of Sprint, and he pointed something out that I thought was very special. And we've all already known that Sprint is spectrum rich. As far as the high band, they have the most spectrum out of probably any carrier in the world. And a few weeks ago, John Saw and the COO Günther Ottendorfer, they did a demonstration in New York of what that third carrier can do, as in speeds and what it could offer in capacity. So I'm thinking, okay, but there's still issues in certain markets as far as density, tower spacing, etc. So with this third carrier being added by Sprint starting next year, I'm sure it'll be you know live in more markets. Sprint will actually have its first competitive advantage on the network side when they roll out the third carrier. Well, when they open up the third carrier aggregation. And here's why I say this, because there is not one US carrier besides Sprint that can offer 60 megahertz at 60 megahertz. And most of the way TD LTE works, they can dedicate most of that 60 megahertz to download. That's why when you look at speed tests, they're very lopsided. Sprint will have very high download speeds of like 110 megabits, and then only 15 megabits on the upload. That's because most of theirs is dedicated to the download. No other carrier in the US besides Sprint can offer 60 megahertz at three-way carrier aggregation. AT&T would need a fourth carrier aggregation, Verizon would need a fourth, and T-Mobile would need a fourth to match Sprint. Sprint at a fourth will go ahead again because Sprint can do another 20 megahertz on the fourth carrier, which would allow them to enable 80 megahertz of spectrum on band 41, which that if you're a real tech head and you're really deep into it, that's mind blowing. Sprint can do up to 100 megahertz on downlink, and like I said, most of it is dedicated to download, so uploads will always be, you know except in a congested area, uploads will always be slower than download on Sprint's network. So now you're going to say, well, they're not dense enough, they need more small cells. Yeah, that's happening, but you got to look at it like this. If once Sprint rolls out 60 megahertz of spectrum, even if there's a tower spacing issue, you can still probably, at that megahertz, you could still probably pull between 30 to 40 megabits on just one bar of band 41. That is 60 megahertz is a lot of spectrum. So if there's a tower spacing issue where the tower is a little bit far from your location, and you connect to like one or two bars, you're still going to get crazy speeds. That and that is why I say that Sprint will have a competitive advantage next year once they roll it out at 60 megahertz. And then you can imagine what happens when they add small cells and additional macro sites. The network in cities is gonna be, I don't want to say unstoppable, because Verizon still has a lot more macro cells up, and their small cell rollout is at a much faster rate than Sprint's. But I'm sure you guys remember back when Marcelo said, we're gonna be number one and number two in 80% of top 120 markets, by 2018, and then SoftBank CEO said the same. And I'm sitting back reading the comments, and even I doubted it. A lot of people were like, "Yo, these guys are just talking. They're just hyping it up." But both of those guys are successful billionaires. Both Marcelo and both Massa. They're both successful billionaires. So I looked at it from a different perspective, and I was like, there has to be some truth to this. There has to be. They wouldn't. These are both successful men, that have a reputation, so they wouldn't just say it, and then when it doesn't happen, their reputation would go down. So look forward, and then also with the technology that's going to boost coverage of 2.5 band 41 30% to match 1.9 band 25, that's just icing on top of the cake. So this is going to be very interesting going into 2017. If Sprint can really roll, the third carrier aggregation out to every market, add more band 41, add third carrier aggregation to those sites, in markets that don't have band 41, Sprint is going to be a serious competitor next year as far as speeds. It's going to be very surprising to a lot of people, but with that spectrum advantage, they can do some damage to the other carriers. So just wanted to discuss that with you guys and see what you guys think about it. Leave the comments in the comment section down below. I know it may seem crazy now because it's the network is still slower and there is no network expansion happening, but you got to remember, this is Marcelo's 3 to 5 year turnaround plan still, and they're still trying to catch up in big major markets such as Chicago, Kansas City. They still got to catch up in those markets before they even think about expanding. And that's just my opinion. Maybe they do need to expand quicker, but if most of the funding is going towards, cities, bigger cities, then I think that's the correct way to go. And then, they can expand and add additional LTE and all that good stuff. So definitely let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But I think Sprint, I don't think they're necessarily going to just run the table and be number one clear, because other networks are going to, enhance their network, modifications, small cells. But I think Sprint will really, really have their very first competitive advantage as far as their spectrum, and they will finally show it, starting next year. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. I got more videos coming up, so like, share, subscribe, and this is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.